All right, if you don't know me, my name is Kent Tilley. I own K4 Financial and I'm 41 years old and my mom just had to buy me a house. That would be embarrassing to a lot of people, but I'm going to explain to you why I don't find it that embarrassing and how I structured this with my mother. Because this is something that I think might come into play for a lot of people. I am a small business owner in Canada. Over the last 7 years, I've been trying to build a financial planning company online that, you know, in a lot of cases, I deem to be fairly successful. Am I wealthy? Absolutely not. But are we a growing business that generates decent revenue that grows every year? Yes. However, anybody in this country that owns a small business knows that the biggest detriment to owning a small business is how hard it is to get good lending from a financial institution because they think that your income is not secure enough. It's just the way that it goes. I've talked to a million business owners that are like, I can't get money for this, this, or this, but I can get a credit card for this, or I can easily get a car loan or whatever. But when I wanted to buy a house, they said I wasn't good enough. And that bothers me because I wish that banking was sort of the way that it used to be, where I could walk in, talk to a banker that knew me, knew my situation, was helping me along the way with my business to help me grow my business, and could call in their manager and say, look, this guy can easily afford to buy a $390,000 home. But the computer tells them that I'm too big of a risk. So I understood that. Now, I totally understand that. And the reason why I was out of a home is because late last year, my wife and I separated. And I moved into a nice condo for 6 months. Was just renting it, trying to figure out what was going on. And one of the things that was really missing from my life was that I wasn't that close to my son anymore. So it was a little bit inconvenient to drop him off at school in the morning. And a house came up, in the neighborhood close to where our other home is, and really close to his school, and he could bike back and forth in 2 or 3 minutes and make it really easy for my wife and I to coordinate his schedule and go back and forth. So this house was a thing that I really wanted, and it was $390,000, which is probably the least expensive home in Canada at this point in time. And they're like, yeah, you can't afford to buy that. So what was I to do? I really wanted it because it was going to make my life better. It was going to allow me to put a little bit of my own, sweat equity into the property, because I really like doing those types of jobs, which helps with my mental health, instead of, being downtown in a condo and saying, well, I'm single now, so I can just walk and have a beer at the bar next door or whatever. No, I would much prefer having a yard that I can work in and collaborate with my friends and do whatever. And so now I'm at a point where, okay, what do? I really, really want this house. I know that it's going to be helpful. I know the trajectory of the business. I believe that I know more about finances than the average banker at, your local branch that's been working there for 2 months. I'm pretty sure I understand what's going on a little bit more than that. And I know what's going on with my mother's finances. My mom has some money, but certainly does not have enough money to buy each one of her 4 kids in the K4 a $400,000 home and still be able to, comfortably retire. It's certainly not the kind of money that is in the Tilley family. However, we do have, some money, and definitely I'll never say that this is not true, have had an advantage over the average Canadian because my father was a doctor and he made good money until he passed away in, his mid 50s. So we did have a financial advantage over the majority of people, but we certainly aren't wealthy enough that every kid gets a house and all of these other things. And I certainly would never want my mom to buy me a house anyway, because I would feel like, that was something that I wanted to do on my own. So here comes the deal that I offered my mom. I know, that there's some money sitting in a non-registered account, and, who knows what's going on with the market, but there are GICs out there paying 4.5 or 5% or whatever. And I said to my mom, okay, mom, I know in 2 years that the bank is going to be able to lend me this money based on what I know they need to know about the income I'm paying myself. So I need you to give me a 2-year GIC for 6% for $400,000. You are going to buy a home for $400,000. I am going to give you 6% a year, paid out monthly, not compounded, for 2 years. I'm going to pay you $24,000 a year for 2 years. I'm going to pay every single expense on the home. You are not going to pay anything. You still own the home. So if something happens, I can't pay you anymore, you can sell it. You own that GIC. And in 2 years' time, I'm going to buy it off you for the exact amount of money that you paid for it. And that's it. It's as simple as that. And I know I've talked about, being a banker for your children in videos before. And a lot of people say you should never lend your kids money. It's a terrible idea. Well, in this case, what was I going to do? I could have rented a place somewhere else for $2,500 or $3,000 a month, given some landlord $2,500 or $3,000 a month, not had the ability to put any of my own money into this house because it's not mine, doesn't feel like I own it, and, in this case, get to keep actual money in our family by giving my mom close to $50,000 in 2 years. However, she's helping me out because I'm paying less than I would to a landlord that needed me to pay more in order for them to make money on top of their mortgage and all the other bills that they're paying. So this was a way for me to feel like I owned the home, but the bank wouldn't let me. So I had to ask my mom to be my banker. And it's as simple as that. I wish that banks could go back to the olden days where you have a business idea, something comes up, you go in and tell a story, and they say, you know what, we're going to take a bet on you because you're no longer a number, and you're actually a human being with an idea that's showing us something that we trust this relationship, and we're going to help each other through this relationship. That's the way that banking used to be. That's why the boomer generation still has this real belief that banks in this country are doing real good for average everyday Canadians, is because there used to be that level of trust. That does not exist anymore. That is not the way it works anymore, because the only thing that matters to giant corporations is how much money can we make off of every single individual. And we need to take the max amount of money that we need to make with taking as little risk as possible. That's it. And we're going to place all of the risk on you by giving you high interest debt instead of giving you a loan. This is exactly why, the easiest example is you have $40,000 worth of credit card debt. If you went into your bank and said, can I please get a $40,000 loan at half of that interest rate so I could potentially even possibly think about paying this off over the rest of the course of my life, They will say, no, that is too risky for you. And you're like, too risky for me? I'm paying half the amount of interest. How is that risky for me? But that's what they'll tell you. And so I don't know why we're still in this thing where we're saying, yeah, they're doing all the best things for us. They're not. So anyway, that's my truth. That's what happened. That's how I structured it. As my wife and I go through sort of the separation process, I know this is happening a lot out there in the country. It's very difficult financially. I don't really know, the system yet because my wife and I I've already sort of structured a deal with her verbally that we talked about that's working for us. And the most important thing to us is our son anyways. And we're working that out. But it will certainly allow me to have a better understanding of what the process is like so that I can help other people that are going through this understand, because it's certainly a very difficult financial time to split up household bills and now have to try and support two homes with two incomes when you used to support one home with two incomes is certainly a very expensive circumstance that's unfortunately happens in life sometimes. So we'll talk about that later, but thank you very much for watching. Thank you again, Mom. I know you probably won't watch this video, but you've certainly given me a leg up in life for sure, and I'll never forget it.